All right, I don't know what happened there, but I think I was telling the story about the LMTV, and just the snow was so deep, and you can see in that picture of the yield sign that uh, it's almost up to the top of the yield sign, and those signs are like 9 feet tall. And so the snow's probably 6 feet deep in that picture, and we're only in 2 feet deep where the snow, so we're on top of 4 feet of packed down snow. So, um, oh, Eric just sent me a text. He says the last thing we were talking about was when our knees were touching in the hot tub. So yeah, we did that hot tub thing. All five of us climb in it, and it was kind of awkward being in a mostly warm kiddie pool with grown-up people, and our knees are touching because it was so tight. So, but once again, amazing trip. On that trip, you can't see it in this picture, but there's a pallet of firewood behind me, behind the cab, and that pallet of firewood was timber cutoffs, kiln dried timber cutoffs, and it's a 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot pallet, not a 40-inch pallet, but it was an actual 4 foot pallet, and we burned that all in 2 nights. So it was like once you do the math on it, the wood when it's stacked that tight, it was practically a cord of wood that we burned in 2 nights. So we had big fire that time too.
Didn't you at one point you get stuck, or one of you guys get stuck, and then FJ recovered you with a Bubba rope?
Yeah, that FJ that you see in the very, very back, just Bubba roped it backwards. Yeah.
All right.
Those things got stuck easy. Yeah, send it, Coy.
So my next one here was we did a beach camping trip, and it was one of those ones where it was like, I don't know, some online Overland Oregon PDX something group. I don't remember which one it was. They like did a little camp trip or day trip, depending on what you wanted to do. And we went and camped. We had this big bonfire going on the beach. Everybody brought a lot of firewood. And here we'll pop the picture up. It was a really cool fire, cool beach. And I brought my oven, which is a little Camp Chef oven. You don't see it in the picture here. And I brought a bunch of like cookie dough of different, lemon, all kinds of stuff. And I just started just like a factory baking cookies for everybody. And I remember there was some point somebody brought kids, and I was like, did you guys want some cookies? And they're like, we have to ask our dad. And I've got like a pair of pliers holding this hot tray of cookies and a spatula. And they like kind of get his attention. I'm like, hey, is it okay if they have some cookies? And he's like, where? Like the look on his face was, he was so out of, he's like, where did you get
cookies?
Cookies? What? Kind of doing that. And I was like, I have an oven. I brought oven. I'm baking cookies. Do they want a cookie? They can have one. He's like, I guess, yeah, they can have a cookie. So I gave him cookies, and he was kind of part of the group, and we camped out, and whoever it was in that white Toyota got insanely drunk amongst all these families that were there, and then did cookies to the point where I had to lose it on him and tell him to stop or I was going to call the cops kind of thing. And it was a memorable camp trip.
Typical Toyota people.
I know. Just gross.
This is gross. Well, good on you for saying something, especially when there's a bunch of families around. That's messed up.
My last one here is snow camping on the 70 road. I just got my rooftop tent all set up together, and I was going to drive up over. We were going to go have dinner in Nile, then drive back, and I was going to camp at the peak. We were on our way down, and my 4Runner turned sharply into a ditch, and I put it in 4-wheel drive or 4 low, and like pulled out of it really hard, and broke my CV axle. So we pulled my CV axle real quick and tried limping myself up to the top of the hill, and I just wasn't getting enough momentum or power because I was just in 2-wheel drive, and the other rigs couldn't assist me enough, which I'm kind of surprised we didn't manage to like Bubba rope it or something. don't know what was going through our heads. It was because I kept turning to the side because, oh yeah, I had lost one of the bolts on my spindle that holds the ball joint. There's two bolts there, and it had flipped around and it turned my wheel. So I basically lost steering up front. So I ended up camping on a hill. My boss at the time, she took my son, and I just stayed, and a snowstorm rolled in overnight. We got like 11 inches. I woke up in the middle of the night. I'd set up a fire, and then the snow and wind blows in, and it just knocks everything down. Blew away my tarp. I had to go grab it and sit in my rig and watch my fire sputter out because of the snow. Pretty miserable. I was really upset with myself and my situation. Slept in my rig by myself, had snowmobilers going by all night, checking on me. They actually posted about me in one of the snowmobile groups, and a friend reached out to me the next day to ask if my rig was still up there. I woke up the next morning, and I'm eating breakfast, and over the hill, I hear this putting, very recognizable sound of my buddy's XJ crawling over the hill, and basically coming to the rescue with a bunch of other people behind him. He was miles ahead of him, though, because he was just plowing through it like it was nothing. And we trail repaired my Forerunner back together. We drilled a hole in my spindle, put a socket with welded a socket extension to a socket through for the bolt, and replaced the CV axle. And I drove off down to Greenwater. It was a fun time. Not really, but it was exciting for what it was. I mean, it's one of those great, cool trail repair stories, and camping up there in a snowstorm, seeing stuff, just kind of tripping out over the experience, being miserable, but at least knowing, hey, I have everything I need. One of those memories that sticks with you when I head up that way. I'm like, oh, do I got everything I need if something goes wrong? And do I know who to call when I've got a problem? And I had like a local guy that owns a shop. His son was up there, and he had a Ready welder in the back of his Jeep, which is how we welded that socket extension and socket together. So yeah, fun times. Aaron, you're muted.
My last favorite camping trip story is from the McGrew Trail that we did last summer. No, is it 2 summers ago now?
Yeah.
It wasn't this summer.
Yeah.
Oh, my lights just flickered in here. If I lose power.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Well, whenever we did the McGrew Trail, whether it was last year or the year before, I can't remember, but it was a fun trail. It was good camaraderie, good camping, but after we were done, we didn't know where we were going to camp, and there was a Y in the road, and half the group went one way, the other half went the other way. We had CB communication, and we were scouting for campsites, and we came across this campground that was kind of cool. And then we called everybody back. We're like, hey, come on back, come to this place. It's better than whatever you're going to find. And they didn't find anything cool. And then we pulled out of the campground because we saw something across this bridge, and we drove across the bridge, and there was like this sheltered space in these trees and all this river rock, and the river that was on, I think it's the Smith River, made this big wide bend around the land, and the water was slow, and it was amazing. And so we camped there for the night, and that was such a good way to end that trip. And it was we didn't have to pay for that campsite. It had a pit toilet. We would have to pay for the other one. This had better river access, amazing swimming. We spent a bunch of time in the water at that place. It was so nice. It was super hot out, and so the water was the right temperature. We had a nice fire. I don't know if we were supposed to have a fire or not. It didn't say no fires. So Had a really good time.
You guys tried to convince me to drive across the river and then up
Yeah.
some thing that looked like it had been a road.
You could have made it. You would have made it.
I believe I could have made it, but I was
Somebody
like, guys, we're in California. I'm not driving in the river. Like, that's not. No. I don't want to go to jail.
Yeah. I don't have a picture of that one, but that was a really good time. Yeah, that was
Awesome.
that's one of my favorite campsites. It's too bad that it's so far away to get to that specific. It's probably a 9-hour drive from my house to get to that specific campsite. So,
really?
or at least it felt like 9 hours, because somehow on that trip I had smashed my exhaust and it slowly ripped itself apart on the drive home, and just tore a bigger and bigger hole from the vibrations, and it sounded like I was a ricer on the drive when I'm driving. I'd let off the accelerator pedal and it just rattle. Yeah, it was terrible. So yeah, that was a good campsite. Real quick before you go next, I got 2 quick honorable mentions. This picture is taken from the Barlow Trail, and this is way back in the day when there was a forum called Get Out, and this was a family trip in June. And this was the first official trip I took my off-road camp trailer on, and I had this cool idea to set up a zip line across the creek so you can barely see my Nissan hiding in the trees, connected to a tree saver. And yeah, we're ziplining kids. I even ziplined across this creek. It was really cool. And then this other picture this is at Garbage Camp, because I went there once before. I went with Ben, and I went with my son, and you can see he's like 5 years old in this picture. We didn't know it would snow or anything. We didn't have any snow gear. So I put socks on his hand, and in this picture, he's drinking hot chocolate, and we're sitting around the campfire. For you audio listeners, there's a dusting of snow on the ground. There's a fire going in front of us. He's sitting in a camp chair, bundled up, drinking hot chocolate, and he's singing like what songs kindergartners would sing. I don't remember what song he was singing or anything, but that was a really special moment. I totally forgot to bring any toys for him to play with. Thankfully the wood that I brought, because I worked at the lumber yard, was all flat wood, and so I found some pens and pencils for him to draw pictures on the wood before we burned it. It's a good trip though.
Nice picture of the family. Whoosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a dog. Nice. Whoosh. And I'm, not to copy you, Aaron, but my last one, I'm going with McGrew trip as well, because it was kind of my last, like, I guess we had a snow camp trip in there, but it's the last really big group we did. So for me, the McGrew trip, there was a lot of planning. We had to do a permit, and then it's one of the bigger. I mean, we had 8 vehicles, and it wasn't a boys trip, so there were no kids, but it was pretty much everybody had a wife with them or girlfriend.
Everybody but Cody.
Yeah, so I don't remember what the total, but it was like 15 people there or something.
Yeah,
and then I kind of usually on a lot of these trips, I'll kind of wrangle the food and kind of like everybody brings stuff, but I kind of head it up. I should say I kind of lead the charge, and then that trip I was also kind of leading the charge. Aaron helped a lot, but so up to the first night, there's a little anxiety. Like, is the food stuff going to work out? Like, we can find, like, you want it to go well, because you kind of
you hadn't camped or wheeled with any of those people either, except for maybe Alan and me. They were all my friends that you hadn't met yet before.
Yeah,
I don't think
I'd met some of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd met some of them, like Christian.
Well, you'd met Christian and Josh, but there was Cody and Rick that you hadn't met.
No, I'd never met some of these people, so it was, and there's just a lot of variables. And we got to the first night, and like we did tacos, and we did like a full taco bar, and it was awesome. And like there was a little trail fix situation going on. I think Josh broke an axle or something in his diff, and then one of the
a little trail fix.
He
blew his rear end out so hard.
Yeah, but it wasn't. They fixed it. It took the drive shaft off, so it stopped dragging and stuff. Like, got it going again. We're all kind of good. There was a tire that was getting fixed. Everybody set up, and we found like a pretty decent campsite. Somebody ran ahead and found it. Then me and Aaron went for a romantic walk watch the fog rolling in from the coast.
I was just trying to think. I was walking my dog. I was like, I don't think I was walking with my wife. Who was on that walk with me?
It was me.
That was you.
We found some cool rocks because we're autistic, and we're like, look at these rocks. And the fog was rolling in. It was one of the coolest. We're like taking pictures of it with our phone. Then you look at it, and in live, you can look up and be like, it doesn't look like this. It's way more awesome. And then we get back to camp. And we fired up. I just got. It was the Oscar plus Shovel plus Axe fire pit, and the girls just loved this thing. And bunch of the wives were just sitting around it playing cards. Like they lived around this fire pit on that trip. And at that moment of that picture, we're like, the wives were all having a good time there. And you're just like, yeah, we did this trip right. Like at that moment, you're like, this worked out. Like all the women are smiling. I don't even know what all the guys were doing, but we were off stomping around. And it was like that's when it all came together. And I was like, this was an awesome trip.
I think so. There's 4 ladies here. That was the only ladies that were there. In the background, you can see one person. I think that's Rick in the background. Sad that he's not part of the ladies group right there.
Possibly.
Did his wife not go on that trip?
No, his wife never goes on. Christian was his wife on that trip.
Oh,
Christian rode shotgun with Rick. Yeah.
And Karen's been on a trip because she went to Nevada with us.
No, he's talked. There's 2 Ricks.
Oh,
Here.
This is a different. Yeah, this is a different Rick. This is Oregon Rick, who drives an Xterra.
Old Rick with the Jeep. Pretty much always brings his wife, and Rick doesn't.
Gotcha.
Yep.
But I just at that, like when you see the women all having a good time, you're just like, hey, we nailed this. And it kind of all came together in that moment for me. And I put a lot of work kind of to get there. And like there's a lot of stuff moving and going on. And I just was like, yes. And I see that picture every time. I just get like that warm, like, oh yeah, we did it, you know.
It's important. I mean, if you want your spouse to be happy with you doing your trips, you know, every now and then you got to bring them with, right? And they've got to have a good time doing it. Otherwise, they don't want you out there doing it.
You have too good a time though, then they want to come every time. So it's a happy meeting.
Happy.
They gotta have a good time on the trip, but then it has to be like a 9-hour drive back where they're like, well, I did have fun. That drive was terrible.
Yeah, babe, this is going to be really dusty and dirty. We're not going to have any chance to get clean. We're going to drive so many hours, and it's really rough.
Yeah. Or it's really cold, and the fires are never big enough.
That same trip, that same fire pit, you can turn that thing up. So,
oh, yeah, I know.
Oh, and you were sneaking that. You were just like slowly sneaking.
They were all huddled around it. It was it me or you? I just know one of us was.
It was you. It was
one of us
you.
Just slowly, like once a minute, would just tick it. And finally, it happened so slow. It was like the boiling a frog thing. They're like hanging out around the fire, and there's 6 foot of flame coming out of this, like just a mass. All this noise, and finally one of them turned around. Was like, "What is going on with the fire pit?" And we're like, "Ah."
Good times. Well, next week we will be talking about how big do you really need to build your rig. So it's should be a fun time.
Yep, and we want to thank everyone who listens to us weekly, and to those who watch us live on YouTube. That's the best place to find us. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you're sharing us with your friends, sharing us with your friends, and helping us grow. God bless America. Let me know, does it really look like I'm having a bowel movement? I don't think so.
Don't forget to visit Patriot Patch and join the Patch of the Month Club. Check out our Gaia affiliate link for up to 40% off. Also, don't forget to head over to Warren Colby Valve and 4 Patriots to see all of their great products. We are a proud part of the Firearms Radio Network. Got a question or comment? Send it to us through our Linktree account or by searching for Off-Road Podcast. Also, you can listen to us live at overlandradio.com Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific. When off-road, please remember to have fun, tread lightly, and be safe and courteous. Thanks for listening.
I think Koi. Is that hammer time?
Yeah.